They say Estate in Asheville, North Carolina, is the largest private home in America, sprawling castle of stone, oak, and secrets. Most tourists come for the history, the architecture, the gardens. But what they don't know is that once a decade, when the moon bleeds red in the October sky, something ancient wakes beneath its foundations. I wasn't supposed to be there. I'm just a tech consultant. My clients were rich, eccentric types with old family names and older money. One of them, Raymond Dorsey III, had invited me to what he called the last masquerade. He handed me a velvet envelope after a data recovery job and said, "It's not what you think. Don't bring anyone. Don't ask questions. Just come." The invitation was written in ornate calligraphy on paper that felt like skin, too soft, too warm. The address was simple: the Biltmore Estate. October 30th, 9 p.m. Masks required. Dress as if the dead are watching. I should have burned it, but curiosity's a cruel thing. And pride makes you say yes to the weird invitations, the secret clubs, the things your gut tells you are a mistake. I had no idea I was saying yes to a nightmare. I arrived just after dusk, winding through the mountain roads. The estate loomed from the mists like something torn from a Gothic novel, lit in blood-red uplighting. It wasn't open to the public tonight. This was something else, a private event. Security at the gates wore Victorian attire with white gloves and black eyes. Not Black Iris's black eyes. Like sharks. They waved me through silently. I parked in a gravel circle beneath towering oaks, their branches clawing the moonlight. Other guests emerged from vintage Rolls-Royces, limousines, and polished Cadillacs. All masked, feathers, horns, beaks, skulls. No one spoke. My mask was simple, black velvet with silver trim. I wore a tailored tuxedo and gloves. I felt like a pretender among royalty. These people carried themselves like they belonged to another era, like they'd been practicing this for centuries. We were led into the house through the side portico. The grand hall was dimly lit with flickering chandeliers, their bulbs burning an eerie green hue. I caught glimpses of antlers on the walls. No, not antlers, horns. Twisted, spiraling, too long to be deer or elk. A woman in a white mask, her dress dragging like it was soaked, whispered as she passed, "Don't drink the wine. It's not for you." That's when I realized no one was looking at me. Not directly. They glanced, sniffed the air, then moved on. I wasn't one of them. The party spread through the house music, playing from a string quartet somewhere above us. But the song didn't follow any rhythm I knew. It was disharmony disguised as elegance. My head throbbed, just listening to it, at 10 p.m. The doors to the banquet hall creaked open. The smell hit me first: told blood, damp stone, rotting lilies. Candles lined the massive dining table, their wax black, flames blue. Seated at the head was a man, or something resembling one. He wore no mask. His face was pale and stretched too tight across the bone, his lips barely concealing gray teeth. "Welcome," he said, voice like silk dragged across broken glass. "Let the last masquerade begin." Everyone raised their glasses. I followed suit, though I hadn't picked up a drink. The food was served by pale waiters with milky eyes. Not once did I see them blink. I took nothing from the platters: raw meat bleeding onto bone-white china, black fruit that pulsed faintly like breathing hearts. Then the lights dimmed. One of the guests, a man with a mask made of stitched-together mouths, stood and said, "Bring the offering." Two attendants dragged in a young man, late teens maybe, drugged or drunk, barely conscious. He was dressed in white, unmasked. No. One flinched. "Wait," I whispered to the woman beside me, but she clutched my hand and whispered, "Don't speak. Don't draw attention." The man was placed on the table. The pale host stood, reached into his jacket, and pulled out a knife knot. A ritual dagger, not some symbolic thing. A hunting knife, crude and old. Its blade looked rusted, but dripped like it was freshly used. He sliced the boy's chest open with surgical ease. The scream never came, just the sound of the quartet, changing tunes something faster, hungrier. Blood poured into the goblets. One by one, the guests drank. I stood, heart pounding, ready to run, but the doors were gone, literally gone. Where the massive oak entrance had been moments before was now just wall. The windows black mirrors. No moonlight, no reflection. I wasn't at the Biltmore anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere beneath it. The woman beside me leaned in close and whispered through her mask. "This place doesn't exist on maps, only in memory. And you've been invited because something in your blood sings." Then she pulled back her mask. There was no face underneath, just teeth. Dozens, smiling, dozens, smiling. My scream in my throat. It locked there like my lungs had forgotten how to breathe, caught between disbelief and pure animal terror. I stumbled back, nearly knocking over a goblet full of warm blood. The woman with the mouth face let out a clicking sound as if dozens of tiny teeth were chattering in laughter, and slowly turned away, vanishing into the crowd of masks and hushed murmurs. I stood frozen, eyes darting across the room. No one else seemed disturbed. No one reacted like what had just happened was wrong. They sipped and nibbled and grinned and glowed in the flickering light, as if watching a boy get opened like a fruit on a table was just dinner theater. The string quartet never missed a beat. I turned back to the table. The boy was gone, not his body, every trace of him. Blood, torn fabric, the pale skin, the shocked eyes gone. Plates were cleared, clean. A new course was being served now. Something thick and pale, squirming gently under a porcelain dome. I backed away. The host, a pale man with the gray teeth, locked eyes with me across the room. I knew then he wasn't human. Whatever wore that flesh did, so like a costume, uncomfortable, unnatural, imperfect. Like something that didn't understand how muscles were supposed to pull skin, or how blinking worked. His pupils weren't round, they were slits, vertical, like a serpent's, and they glowed faintly, like coals deep in a dying fire. He raised a finger and pointed at me. Every mask in the room turned in unison. I bolted. I didn't think, just moved, through a velvet curtain down a dark hallway that bent at unnatural angles. Behind me, the sound of slow footsteps began, echoing. 1 set, 2, 5, a dozen. Hushed voices whispered my name from the shadows. Not yelling, chanting, double quotes, Matthew Dillon. I hadn't told anyone my last name. I ran faster. The hallway narrowed, walls sweating with moisture. It felt like the Biltmore was breathing, exhaling foul air in pulses. The portraits that lined the walls changed as I passed normal faces at first, then slowly deteriorating into things with stitched eyes, hollow mouths, melting flesh. By the time I reached a wooden door at the end, the last painting was just a black canvas with bloody handprints scraping across it. I burst through. It was a servant's passage. Stone walls, damp and cold. Bare bulbs swung on chains from the ceiling, flickering like dying stars. It led downward in a spiral, deeper into the estate's underbelly, a place I hadn't seen on any floor plan. The whispers followed, not just behind me now, in front, above, inside. You shouldn't have come. You were meant to watch, not flee. Blood must balance blood. I stumbled, my foot catching on a step slick with some unnameable fluid. I hit the ground hard, the back of my head slamming against stone. For a moment, everything went white. When I came to, I was lying on a floor made of bone. Literal bone, human, animal, I couldn't tell. The hallway had opened into a chamber with walls made of skulls stacked from floor to ceiling. Candles burned in hollow eye sockets. The air smelled of copper and rot. A figure stood in the center. She wore a red mask shaped like a goat's face, long curling horns extending from the top. Her gown was sheer and tattered, revealing skin that looked bruised. and stitched in places. In her hands was a long piece of cloth, no skin, human skin, inked with symbols that shifted when I looked at them. She turned slowly and tilted her head. "You broke the circle, Matthew," she said. "That's very rude." I pushed myself up, trembling, dizzy. "What is this? What is this place?" Her smile was sad. "This is the underneath. The place that fed the family who built Biltmore. The place they fed in return. And tonight, ... it feeds again." "I'm not one of you," I whispered. "No," she agreed. "But you were born from one who was. Your grandfather, James Delon. A name buried, a history erased. But blood remembers." I shook my head. "He died before I was born. He was a teacher. He was a custodian," she corrected, "of the gate below. He sealed it once, long ago. But the seal cracks. It must be mended. You're his flesh, his key." I ran again, back through the bone hall, through shadows that seemed to reach for me, whispering old names and ancient phrases I didn't understand. I found another door, rusted, locked from the outside, but when I touched it, it opened, and I was back in the house, in a bedroom, ornate, massive, Victorian wallpaper. Fire roaring in a hearth too large for the room, and someone was sitting on the bed. The boy, the one from the dinner table, alive barely. His skin was stitched back together, like a patchwork doll. Eyes swollen shut, his chest rose and fell in shallow, rattling breaths. His lips trembled, and he mouthed something over and over. I leaned closer. "Burn the mask," he whispered, "before midnight, or you'll never leave." Then his eyes rolled back, and he died again. There was no scream, just silence, and in the hallway outside, footsteps, slow, scraping, getting closer, scraping, getting closer. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath, my back pressed against the heavy door. The fire behind me crackled louder than seemed natural, like it was hissing. Whispering. The boy's body lay still on the bed, stitched like someone's sick idea of art. His last words burned in my mind. "Burn the mask. Before midnight." I didn't even know what that meant. I looked around the room, desperate for anything, something sharp. A phone, hell, even a window. But the place was locked in time. No switches, no outlets. Just candlelight and fire, a massive armoire in the corner, and a grandfather clock ticking louder and louder. I checked my watch. It was exactly 11:01 p.m., 59 minutes to midnight. I didn't wait for whoever or whatever was in the hallway to come in. I crossed the room, cracked the armoire open. Inside were dozens of masks, hanging from rusted hooks, each one more grotesque than the last. A stag's skull, stained with what looked like dried blood. A porcelain doll's face, cracked down the middle. A fleshy, organic thing that pulsed ever so slightly, like it was breathing. And in the center, my own black velvet mask, hung like a trophy. I stared at it. The silver trim now looked tarnished. It reeked like sulfur and meat. I reached out and touched. A shock ran up my arm. Suddenly I was elsewhere, standing in a black corridor. No floor beneath my feet, no ceiling above. Just infinite shadow and masks hanging in the air like stars. A voice whispered in my right ear, though no one was beside me. "They watch through the mask. They ride it. When you wear it, you open the door." Then I heard the scream. Distant, raw, inhuman. Not pain, hunger. I ripped my hand back. I was back in the bedroom, collapsed on the floor. The armoire swung wide open on its own now, all the masks swaying as if a breeze had passed through them. Only there was no breeze. The velvet mask had fallen, and lying beneath, it was a piece of paper, a letter, written in smeared ink. "Matthew, you are not the first. You are not the last. They live in the walls now, under the stone. I made a pact to keep them sealed. My blood kept them out. Yours might do the same. But you must burn the mask before the chimes. Do not let them wear you, J.D. J.D. James, Delon, my grandfather. I shoved the mask and letter into my jacket pocket. I needed fire, real fire, the hearth. But just as I turned, the door blew open, and there she was, the woman in the goat mask. But she wasn't wearing it anymore. Her face was flayed. No skin, just raw red muscle and bulging yellow eyes. Her mouth stretched ear to ear in a grin of exposed gums and too many teeth. Her voice was calm, melodic. Don't you want to see what's underneath it all, Matthew? That's why you came. She stepped forward, barefoot, leaving wet prints on the wooden floor, even though it hadn't rained inside. I grabbed the fire poker and swung. It connected. Her head twisted completely around with a sickening snap, but she didn't fall. She giggled. Her body stumbled, then realigned, bones cracking back into place. No, she cooed. Violence is for later. I turned and threw the mask into the fire. It didn't burn. It screamed. The velvet blackened, then pulsed like it was alive. The silver trim sparked and hissed, spewing smoke that formed shapes in the air faces. Claws twisted things that had never been human. The fire roared higher, then the hearth exploded outward, bricks flying, and behind the shattered fireplace, a tunnel carved into the stone. Descending into darkness, the woman in the flayed face shrieked not in pain, but in delight. Yes, she howled. You've found the path. Now the real party begins. She lunged back. I ducked and sprinted straight into the tunnel. The walls narrowed immediately. I had to crouch. The air grew thick, wet. Every few feet, my shoulder brushed something, roots, or bones, or both. The mask's screams still echoed behind me, growing fainter. Then, silence. The tunnel opened into another chamber, and there, dozens of people, chained to the walls. All wearing masks, but their bodies skeletal, starved, barely alive. One of them looked up at me. His mask was gold. He rasped, "Are you the new host?" I stepped back. "What? No." He shook his head. "Then run, before the binding." "The what?" he screamed, thrashing in his chains. The others joined in, a chorus of agony and fear. And then light. Green, sickly light from above, filtering down through cracks in the stone. From above, I could hear music again. Violins. The Masquerade. I was directly beneath the ballroom. Then, I heard it. The chime. 11-30. The next 30 minutes would decide everything. As I turned to leave the chamber of the chained, one of the masked figures whispered to me, "Burn the right one. Only the right one." "What does that mean?" I asked. He pointed to my jacket. The velvet mask, still there, but now there were two, identical. One warm, one cold, and I had no idea which. One belonged to me. One belonged to me. I stood chained, sweat freezing against my back, despite the humid rot in the air. In my jacket pocket were two identical masks, both black velvet, both silver trimmed, both whispering faintly, like insects crawling behind. Silk. One was warm, pulsing gently like a second heartbeat. The other cold, dead, but heavier than it should have been. My hands trembled as I held them both. "Burn the right one," the masked prisoner had said, but which was the right one? I looked up. Through the cracks in the stone ceiling, I could see the grand ballroom's floor directly above me. Silhouettes twirled in circles, shadows spinning in an endless waltz. Laughter drifted through the cracks, elegant, hollow, too perfect. I turned to the man in chains. "What happens if I choose wrong?" He laughed, coughing up blood behind his golden mask. "Then you'll be the next host, and the next last masquerade will be held in your name." "I'm not like you," I said. He leaned forward, his chain creaking. "Neither were we, but we bled. That's all they need." Suddenly, a grinding noise behind me, stone shifting, dust falling. The tunnel had closed. The chamber shook, and something was coming. A groan rose up from the very walls, deep and ancient, as if the estate was exhaling one last breath, then cracking, bones breaking, something crawling in the dark behind the walls. I clutched both masks, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Then a voice, my grandfather's voice, right in my ear. "The mask that pulses is all ready," claimed. "The cold one is yours. Purge the heat before it becomes you." I turned, startled, but no one was there. Just flickering torches and dozens of chained, starving figures moaning in time with the estate's breath. And then the creature arrived. It emerged from a split in the far walls, lowly unfolding itself from the stone like it had grown there. 10 feet tall, dressed in what looked like melted tuxedos and old lace, faces stitched across its body like badges. Its head was a rotted stag skull, eyes oozing tar. It moved toward me without sound. I backed up. It opened a mouth beneath the skull knot, where a mouth should be, but in the chest, a wide, yawning hole filled with whispering teeth. It wanted me to choose. I held up both masks. Its voice rattled the walls. "The wrong face, and you stay forever." It reached out with hands made of fused fingers, hundreds of fingers stretching toward the masks. I had seconds. Instinct, my last anchor, screamed. "The cold one." I threw the warm, pulsing mask into a nearby fire pit. The flames turned blue instantly, and the warm mask screamed. Not metaphorically. It actually screamed a human, voice howling like a dying animal. It twisted in the fire, grew limbs, clutched at the edges of the pit, trying to crawl out. The monster paused, sniffed the air, then reared back and shrieked a horrible, warping sound that shattered the glass globes of the torches. The chained figures screamed too, but their voices didn't sound pained. They sounded relieved. I clutched the cold mask and ran toward the far wall. Something was behind it, my instincts knew. I slammed my hand against the stone. Nothing. Then the cold mask glowed faintly in my palm. The wall breathed and opened. I sprinted through into another tunnel, this one narrower, colder, slick with mildew. The cold mask vibrated in my grip, guiding me like a compass. I didn't know where I was going, just that something worse was behind me. And if I stopped for even a second, I'd never leave this place. The tunnel twisted and dropped, and I felt another chamber. This one was alive. The walls were made of flesh, veined, pulsing wet. A single platform in the center held a stone altar. On it lay the burned remains of the mask I'd thrown into the fire, or so I thought. It moved, reformed it, had eyes now, and it spoke. "Matthew, you chose wrong." I stumbled back. "No," I said. "I chose you. I rejected you." It laughed, a grotesque, gargling chuckle. "You burned my vessel, but I've already tasted you." My chest suddenly burned. I ripped open my shirt. A mask-shaped scar was branded into my skin, faint, glowing red. "You wore me long enough," it whispered. "Now, I wear you," I screamed. The chamber responded. Flesh walls bulged, split open, and hands, thousands of tiny, childlike hands, reached out, grabbing for me, pulling at my legs, my arms, my face. Then dashlight dot, brilliant, golden, unnatural, light. The cold mask burst into flames in my hand, not blue, not red, but pure white dot. It sang a high, ringing note, like a bell made of fire. The hands retreated. The burned mask shrieked in agony, and the wall in front of me cracked, splitting like an egg. On the other side, the Biltmore grand staircase, clean, empty, silent. I ran up, out of the tunnel. The cold mask still aflame in my hand. I emerged into the grand hall. No one was there. No guests. No music. No laughter. Just a dozen black masks, hanging in the air motionless. I turned toward the main door and saw the pale host, waiting, smiling, gray, teeth gleaming. "You've ruined the last masquerade," he said calmly. "No," I whispered. "I survived it." "You think survival is the same as escape?" He grinned wider. "No one leaves, not really." The cold mask flared brighter. He recoiled, snarling. "That doesn't belong to you." "No," I said. "It belonged to the one who sealed you away, and now it belongs to me." I hurled the flaming mask at him. It struck his chest, and everything went white. The world vanished. White light swallowed everything: the walls, the chandeliers, the terrible face of the pale host. And in that blinding flash, I heard a sound so sharp and final, it felt like it split my mind in half. A bell. One chime. Midnight. When my vision returned, I was on my back, coughing, choking on dust and smoke. The grand hall was in ruins. The chandeliers hung broken and scorched. The floors were cracked, and the ceiling above showed slashes of open sky. Moonlight poured through what had once been pristine stained glass, now shattered and bleeding color across the stone. The tapestries on the walls were burning, curling inward like skin in a flame. And everywhere, masks, dozens, hundreds, scattered across the floor, like the aftermath of a massacre. Each one empty, each one twitching, some pulsing, others gasping like mouths. Their whispers rose in a terrible chorus. "The host is broken. The seal is open." I stumbled to my feet. Smoke stung my eyes. The cold mask was gonna vaporize in the burst of light, but the burning scar on my chest remained, red and raw, shaped exactly like the mask I'd thrown. The double doors leading outside stood, open now, but something was wrong. The air had changed, thicker, sour, alive. As I limped forward, a low groaning sound rumbled through the foundation of the castle. Stones split. The floors trembled, and then I heard it. The stairs. Footsteps, thousands of them, from beneath the house, from the tunnels, the walls. They were coming up. Every mask. I'd seen every figure I'd watched in the ballroom. They weren't guests. They were vessels, shells. And now that the host was broken, whatever had worn them wanted something new. Me, I turned and ran past broken tables, over shattered bones, through the archway into the dining hall, now flooded with water and blood. The long banquet table floated sideways in the rising sludge. Dead figures drifted, mouths open in silent screams, eyes gone or turned inward. The main corridor ahead pulsed with red light. Candles burned on the walls, their flames now shaped like hands. I sprinted toward the door at the far end and froze. There, standing in my path, was the boy, the one from the table, stitched, bloodless, dead. And yet, not his mouth moved. No sound came out until I stepped closer. Then I heard it, my own voice, repeating words I hadn't said. "You were supposed to be the vessel," he said through my tone. "You ran. You fought. You lit the seal." I backed away. His stitched mouth curled into a grin that split his cheeks open. "So now, we wear you anyway." He lunged, but something stopped him mid-air. A burst of blue fire not from me. It hit him like a thunderclap and threw him across the hall. Standing behind him was a man in old, tattered clothing, hair white, eyes sunken but unmistakably. "My grandfather, James Delon," I whispered. He looked at me with sorrow. "You shouldn't have come, Matthew." I tried to keep it buried. I shook my head, heart racing. "They said you sealed it." He nodded. "With my blood, my life. But the seal needed a descendant. When I died, they waited for you. They..." James pointed upward. The ceiling peeled back like paper, and what stared down wasn't sky. It was a single, massive open eye. IDLESS.VEINED. Watching, blinking. Inside dash out. I dropped to my knees. No, this can't be. They're older than the family, older than the house. They were buried here long before the first brick. The Vanderbilts built over them, made a pact to feed them in secret, keep them asleep. And the Masquerade, A celebration, James said grimly, and a sacrifice. Every decade, a life offered, a host chosen, a mask burned, or not. My head spun. They want me. He nodded. Unless you end it. How? James handed me something wrapped in cloth, a dagger, but not metal bone, old, etched with words that swam across the surface like worms beneath skin. Pierce the heart below, he said, but you must do it before the 13th chime. My heart stopped. 13. He nodded. They added a chime, one beyond midnight. For them, if it rings, they wake forever. Behind us, the walls began to pulse. Footsteps returned. Screams, thousands of them, all coming this way. James touched my face. Don't be brave, be quick. Then he pushed me through a hidden door and closed it. I screamed, pounded, begged, but I knew he'd stayed behind to buy me time to die again. I ran down a spiral stair into total blackness, clutching the dagger. The whispers rose all around me, and with each step I took, my skin itched like something inside me wanted out. At the bottom of the stairs, a vast cavern opened, lined with bones, lit by blood, and in the center, a heart the size of a house, beating slowly, waiting, beating slowly, waiting. The cavern was massive, wet, breathing. The walls moved like lungs inhaling centuries. At the center, rooted into the ground like a cancerous tree, was the heart below. It pulsed with oily light, the color of bruises, casting shadows that moved without cause. It wasn't shaped like any human heart. It was a grotesque bulb of slick tendrils and eyes, some open, some stitched shut, beating with thunderous rhythm, each thud making my ears ring and my bones tremble. I was not supposed to see this. I was not supposed to exist in this place. The ancient horror in the center of the earth knew I was here, and it wanted me closer. In my hand was the dagger of bone, warm, humming, almost vibrating. The closer I came to the heart, the louder the voices became. Not whispering anymore, but chanting, a low, primal language. Hundreds of mouths, a choir of rot. As I stepped onto the black stone platform, my grandfather's voice echoed in my mind. Pierce the heart below, before the 13th chime. I didn't know how much time I had. Maybe minutes, maybe seconds. I reached the base of the heart. Its tendrils twitched. One uncurled slowly toward me, like a finger pointing to my throat. The flesh smelled of ash and copper, and dreams turned. Sour eyes opened along its length, watching, blinking, weeping black tears. Then it spoke. Not in words, in memories. My mother, her face when I was a child, her voice telling me stories. My first steps, my first fear, my first taste of pain. The heart played my life like a movie inside my skull, all at once, compressed, shattered, then rebuilt in a form not my own. I screamed, and it smiled. A massive seam split across its body, revealing teeth, thousands, slick with blood and time. A mouth the size of a cathedral. You came home, it said, in a voice made of every dead whisper I'd ever heard. No, I growled, holding the dagger tighter. I came to end you. Its laughter came from every wall. The platform shook. The very air thickened with despair. End me. Little blood, little vessel. I am the first, I am the last. I am the host of hosts. The walls cracked above me from the ceiling. They began to descend, dozens of the masquerade figures, now faceless, no longer bound by flesh. They dropped like spiders, floating on invisible threads of Logan, slow, inevitable. One by one, they landed around me, forming a ring of masks. All pointed at me. The heart rose taller. The mouth opened wider, and the 12th chime rang. Time froze. The masked thing swayed. The heart roared, and something inside me snapped. The mask-shaped scar on my chest ignited white flames spreading across my ribs, up my neck. My body moved before I could think. I raised the dagger. The heart screamed. The masked figure shrieked. But I plunged the dagger in, deep, straight into its center. The scream that followed wasn't sounded, was pure sensation. Pressure, force, grief, hate, something ancient and wrong shattering all at once. The heart spasmed, black blood spraying in every direction. It writhed, coils snapping wildly, eyes bursting like overripe fruit. The platform crumbled beneath me. I fell, but I didn't fall far, because James DeLon was there, standing beneath me in the void, holding me, whole. He looked younger now, alive. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It was never supposed to be you." "It's over," I breathed. He shook his head. "No, now comes the cost." The 13th chime rang, but this time, the sound didn't come from above. It came from within me, and the scar flared white-hot. The dagger had pierced the heart, but the seal had been written in blood. Mine, and now the wound was permanent. I was the lock. I was the vessel. James began to fade, so did the masked figures. The heart collapsed, screaming one last time before crumbling into ash. And I stood alone. In the dark, in the quiet, beneath Biltmore. Forever, 1 week. Later they found me at the gates of the estate, naked, bleeding, eyes white as snow, they said. I was mumbling a single phrase over and over. I locked the door. "Don't open it again. They think I'm insane." They put me in a white room, in a place with no windows. I see the doctors in masks. I hear the strings playing at night, and in my chest, where the scar glows faintly beneath the skin, I feel it still beating, still watching, waiting, for the next masquerade, for the next masquerade.